Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's game.
In sports, you're either a winner or a loser at the end of the day. But what happens when players cheat their way to the top or let money and fame influence their performance? Is it really competition if the result is already known before? Sure, the good guys get the glory and the fame, but what about the ones that lose their way on the journey? Let's talk about it. I'm Matt Johnson, and this is Game Changers and Rule Breakers, the podcast. Welcome in to another episode of Game Changers and Rule Breakers, the podcast where we take a look at controversial figures throughout sports history. As always, I'm your host, Matt Johnson. This week, we are not going to football, we are not going to baseball, we are instead going all the way to the sport of horse racing. Now, horse racing's been around a very long time, not just in the US, but all over the world. It was one of the earliest sports that people were placing bets on. And if you know anything about betting, the more money there is on a particular sport, the higher the chance of that sport being corrupted or influenced by outside sources. Now, perhaps the most famous trainer in horse racing recently has been caught up in this. There have been allegations that he has doped his horses, but in the end, he has proven himself a winner. Bob Baffert, 6-time Kentucky Derby winning trainer, 8-time Preakness Stake winning trainer, 3-time Belmont Stake winning trainer. This man knows how to win, and he has done so throughout his career with great success. But was it legit? Did he do it the right way? Let's take a look. Bob Baffert was born on January 13, 1953, on a ranch in Nogales, Arizona. His family raised cattle and chickens growing up, so Baffert was always around animals. When he was 10, his father purchased some quarter horses and had Bob practice racing them on a dirt track around their property. This really gave Baffert his introduction to the horse racing world, and he actually worked for $100 a day in his teen years as a jockey in races on the outskirts of Nogales. Now, these were informal races, so it was kind of just experience. I'll pay you this money, you race my horse, we'll call it good. Baffert moved up from those races to actual recognized tracks and recorded his first personal victory in 1970 when he was only 17 years old. Very, very impressive. Baffert went on to the University of Arizona, taking part in the racetrack industry program, and later began training horses at a farm in Arizona. Baffert's winning ways and knowledge of the game, so to speak, earned him a high reputation as a trainer, and other trainers saw this. Baffert received offers to help with other trainers' stables, help with their horses, get them ready to race, all that good stuff. His first winner as a trainer was on January 28, 1979 with Flipper Star. Baffert eventually moved to California and to Los Alamitos Racecourse, where he trained thoroughbreds throughout the 80s and into the 90s. Baffert always made the most of what he had to work with, too, as his early horses he only bought for $16,000, $17,000. That's chump change in the world of horse racing. A fellow trainer at the time, D. Wayne Lucas, attributed Baffert's success to his, quote, extraordinary eye for a good horse, and Baffert's ability to find a diamond in the rough, so to speak, in a horse and bring him up to the top and get him ready for race shape and eventually to win. But Baffert's journey was just getting started. Next up were the American Classics. Now, if you're not a follower of horse racing, or have no idea what I'm talking about right now, you might be wondering, what are the American Classics? Let me fill you in with some information here. The American Classics in horse racing are the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness Stakes, and the Belmont Stakes. And those three races together make up the Triple Crown of horse racing. To win all 3 of these in a calendar year gets a horse the Triple Crown. Extremely hard to do. Only 13 horses have ever accomplished this feat. The first leg of the Triple Crown is held at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky, the famous Kentucky Derby. It is a 10-furlong race, always held on the first Saturday in May. For any horse looking to win the Triple Crown, or any trainer or any owner, anybody involved, you have to win the Kentucky Derby. It is perhaps the most important race of the year. Once a horse comes out victorious in the Kentucky Derby, in front of all the spectators with their old-timey outfits and their mint juleps and all the tradition that goes with the Kentucky Derby, they will race again 2 weeks after in Baltimore, Maryland in the Preakness Stakes. This race is only 9.5 furlongs, so a little shorter than the Derby, but nonetheless still as important and still as exciting. It has been going for 148 years, and if a horse is victorious here after being victorious at the Derby, they are said to have completed 2 legs of the Triple Crown. For these horses, the final step in achieving that elusive goal is to go to New York and win the Belmont Stakes. Now, compared to the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes, the Belmont Stakes is a little bit more of a marathon. The course is 12 furlongs, so horses have to have the endurance to keep up throughout the race. If a horse becomes victorious in the Kentucky, the Preakness, and the Belmont, they have won the Triple Crown and are at the top of the horse racing world. Interestingly enough, all 3 course records are held by the same horse, Secretariat, in 1973. You may have heard of that horse. There's a pretty good movie made about it. But if you want a horse to go down in history like Secretariat did, and you know Bob Baffert wanted a horse like that, then he was going to have to step his game up and compete hard in the classics. And that's exactly what he did. Bob Baffert first began racing in the highest tier of American horse racing in 1996 when his 3-year-old colt named Cavanier that he trained ran second in the Kentucky Derby. The following year in 1997, Baffert's horse Silver Charm actually won the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes. Baffert thought he had a chance of the Triple Crown, something that had not been accomplished since 1978 at that time. However, Silver Charm would finish second in the Belmont, just missing out on that top honor. Some people would be disappointed. Baffert, however, just kept going and going. In 1998, his horse Real Quiet won the Kentucky Derby yet again, and won the Preakness. So back-to-back first 2-leg wins for Baffert. But yet again, the horse finished second in the Belmont, this time by a nose. Credit where credit's due, however, as Baffert became the first trainer in history to win the Derby and the Preakness in back-to-back years. As fate would have it, the same situation happened again in 2002. War Emblem won the Derby and the Preakness. Could Baffert get his Triple Crown on his 3rd attempt? Yet again he was denied, as War Emblem lost the Belmont Stakes. This began sort of a drought for Baffert, as he did not have a horse hit the board again in the Triple Crown races until 2009, when Pioneer of the Nile finished second in the Kentucky Derby. Baffert continued to experience modest success up until the legendary year for horse racing in 2015. Could Baffert break through? Let's find out. In 2015, it had been 37 years since horse racing had a Triple Crown winner. But Bob Baffert was determined to change that with his horse, American Pharoah. On the day of the Kentucky Derby, May 2nd, 2015, American Pharoah was listed as the favorite in an 18-horse field. Baffert and his team got nervous as the horse began to get jumpy going into the gates and took a lot of restraints and manpower to get him under control. His team was worried that he was using too much energy before the race and that he would get tired before the finish line. However, that was not the case, as American Pharoah won the Kentucky Derby by a length, finishing in 2 minutes 3 seconds. Baffert had yet another Derby winner. But would this be like the others? Would American Pharoah win the Preakness and falter in the Belmont? Many people speculated that would be the case, but this horse was built differently. In the 2015 Preakness Stakes, American Pharoah drew the number 1 post position. This is not where you want to start in horse racing. You do not want to start on the end, on the rail. No horse actually had won the Preakness Stakes starting from the rail since 1994, so this did not bode well for Baffert and his team. However, American Pharoah proved them all wrong as the horse broke away from the pack and won the race by 7 lengths in 1 minute 58 seconds. Baffert had 2 down and he had 1 to go. Would this be the year? The world would find out in the Belmont Stakes. American Pharoah came into the race as the favorite in an 8-horse field. So if you think about it, coming from the huge field of the Kentucky Derby where you have 20 horses, 8 horses, you'd think that's a little more manageable, right? American Pharoah evidently thought so too. He had no problem dealing with the rest of the field and ended up winning the race by 5.5 lengths in a time of 2 minutes and 26 seconds. Baffert had done it. He had won the Triple Crown. For the first time since 1978 and affirmed, horse racing had one true champion. After Baffert's unprecedented success in 2015, he had another shot in 2018 to do it again. This time with a horse named Justify. Justify, however, was running at a disadvantage. The Kentucky Derby is normally made for 3-year-old horses, but Justify was running in it as a 2-year-old. And no horse since Apollo in 1882, back in the early days of horse racing, had won the Kentucky Derby as a 2-year-old. It was so well known that it has been called the Curse of Apollo over the years. Additionally, the 2018 Kentucky Derby was considered one of the most competitive fields in recent memory, with many lower stakes race winners entering the race. On a rainy day in early May in Churchill Downs, Justify defied the odds in 2018, winning the race by 2.5 lengths at the finish line. Baffert had done it again. The Curse of Apollo? No more. Who cares about a horse from 1882? This is 2018. We can do anything we want. That was Baffert's attitude. Fast forward to the 2018 Preakness Stakes. In terrible conditions. Downpour. Not even close to where you want to be as a horse racer. Justify did it again. This time winning by only 1/2 length. And 1/2 length is as good as anything to win a race. With the first 2 legs out of the way, Baffert resumed prepping Justify for the Belmont Stakes, the final round in 2018. Justify drew position 1 for the start, right on the rail. Once again, not a good spot to start in, because if you're horse racing and you get out to a slow start, you could get boxed in between the rail and the other horses, therefore hindering your chance of victory. Justify didn't care about any of that. He got out right to the front, held the lead, and won by 1 3/4 lengths, giving Baffert his second Triple Crown, and becoming the only trainer to win Triple Crowns in the 21st century. This is something that a lot of people thought they would never see again after the 37-year drought between Affirmed and American Pharoah. And Baffert had done it twice in 3 years. Absolutely insane. This man was being talked about as one of the greatest horse trainers of all time. With good reason. Baffert ended up winning his 6th Kentucky Derby, a record, in 2020 with Authentic. And another one of his horses, Medina Spirit, appeared to come out victorious in 2021, giving Baffert potentially his 7th all-time. However, issues behind the scenes started to come into play. Throughout his career, Bob Baffert had always come off as a flamboyant, arrogant winner. When he walked in the room, he made sure people knew who he was and knew his presence. Humble was not really a concept in his mind, and that rubbed some people the wrong way, especially when he backed it up by winning on the racetrack with his horses. But were these wins legit? Over 30 horses that Baffert has trained have failed drug tests in his career. Baffert has paid out $20,000 in fines but has challenged almost every allegation against him, vigorously fighting against suspensions and fines to keep his image and name clear. And in most cases, it's worked. He's been able to sweep things under the rug and move on with his career. But in 2021, it caught up to him. After his horse Medina Spirit won the Kentucky Derby, a post-race drug test showed a concentration of betamethasone above the legal limit. Now, what is betamethasone? To put it simply, it's a steroid. And it is a steroid that is illegal under Kentucky Derby rules, in any amount. Because of the positive test, Medina Spirit could face disqualification from the Kentucky Derby, therefore stripping Baffert of his record 7th win. Baffert vehemently disagreed with Churchill Downs' findings and told reporters he would fight the issue, quote, tooth and nail. Regardless, Churchill Downs suspended Baffert from entering any horses at their track in any race until the investigation was resolved into Medina Spirit. On June 2nd of that same year, Medina Spirit's second drug sample also tested positive, and Baffert was therefore suspended throughout the end of 2023. Medina Spirit was also disqualified from the 2021 Kentucky Derby. And the dominoes kept falling. Baffert was also banned from entering any race at Belmont Park, including the prestigious Belmont Stakes. He was banned by the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission, the California Horse Racing Board, and eventually suspended for 90 days in 38 states that sanction horse racing. To make matters worse, Medina Spirit died of a heart attack in December 2021 after a workout in California. This raised questions on whether Baffert pushed the horse too hard or doped up the horse so much that it passed away prematurely. And this wasn't the first time this has happened. Flashback to 2011. 7 horses in Baffert's care at his stables died from sudden, unexplained heart attacks between 2011 and 2013. In fact, 36% of all cardiac horse deaths in the state of California were horses trained by Baffert. Could this be a coincidence? In a state as large as California, for over a third of all cardiac horse deaths to be attributed to you. That doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. That seems like a little bit of correlation there. California's medical director thought so too. He found that Baffert's horses were regularly given thyroxine, a thyroid hormone that could cause heart problems during exercise. However, it could not be conclusively proven that thyroxine caused these horses to suffer these heart attacks, and therefore no sanctions were issued. Staying true to his reputation, Baffert continued to fight any and all allegations regarding Medina Spirit, the Kentucky Derby, and any drugs that might have been used in his career. Because of his unwillingness to take responsibility, Baffert's suspension was extended by Churchill Downs through 2024 on July 3, 2023. Would this be the end of his horse racing career? Would he ever get back on track? It remains to be seen. We have reached the time of the show where, as always, I break down, was this famous sports figure a game changer or a rule breaker? In Bob Baffert's case, there are arguments for both sides. He might be the best horse trainer of all time, as proven by his 6 or 7, if you want to put an asterisk by that, Kentucky Derby wins, his 8 Preakness Stakes wins, 3 Belmont Stakes wins, and 2 Triple Crowns, the first since the 70s. Many people thought it would never happen again. Baffert proved them wrong. He proved that a horse can win these 3 races, and maybe other people were just doing it wrong. Maybe you just had to follow Baffert's way. But regardless, the results don't lie. American Pharoah, 2015, Justified 2018, Baffert cemented his name in the record books with those runs by those horses. But he also broke rules. And Bob Baffert is the worst kind of rule breaker. The rule breaker who doesn't take responsibility for their actions. Medina Spirit, 2021, failed a post-race drug test. Failed the second sample drug test a month later. Disqualified. Take away a Kentucky Derby win. That's big. For the casual horse racing fan, the Kentucky Derby might be the only day of the year where they care anything about horse racing. To screw that up on as big a stage as that was, damaged the reputation of the sport and damaged Baffert's reputation greatly. Additionally, the use of the thyroid medication that gave his horses heart issues. Not really ideal, or just okay in general. That's not good. If you put anything into your animals that's going to harm them in the long run for your short-term gain, that's not the look you want to have on your reputation or your career. Baffert's insistence to double down on this, though, is what really gets me the most. The drug tests are there. You cannot dispute a positive drug test. It's there. You can't dispute your animals dying, all of the same cause in a short period of time. And if he would just take responsibility for his actions, I don't think he would be suspended right now. I think they would let him back with open arms if he admitted what he did was wrong, and he could continue in his winning ways because he's proven that he's a winner. He knows what he's doing. He's one of the best in the business. But because he cannot get over the fact that he cheated to win, I have to give him the rule breaker label. And it hurts me to do that because he delivered 2 Triple Crowns, a feat that very few trainers have ever accomplished. That immediately puts him at the upper echelon of trainers and of the horse racing world. But if you can't take responsibility for your actions, then I can't label you a winner. It will be interesting to see what happens in the coming years if Baffert ever gets back into the sport, or if he just goes out in a blaze of glory, letting his own arrogance take him down. We'll see. I hope for the sport's good and his own good, I hope that he gets it together and gets back into horse racing's good graces, because it's beneficial for both sides that way. Will he do it? We shall see. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode and this season of Game Changers and Rule Breakers. It has been a wild ride, but I'm glad that I can do it with you guys listening. Appreciate all the support I've gotten. It really makes this worth doing. But until next season, whenever you're watching sports now, I hope you can see whether the people on TV, the people in your head, the people you might have idolized growing up, were they game changers or were they rule breakers? I'm Matt Johnson, and this has been Game Changers and Rule Breakers, the podcast. Thanks for listening.